All right. Hey, everybody. We're back again. It's Live Healthy Metro East. And once again, I have one of my great coaches hanging out with us today to talk a little bit, Lindsey Welch. Welcome, Lindsey. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Lindsey, you are the resident 20 something coach of our staff, right? Like there's no you are the youngin on the coaching staff, but you are not
Definitely.
a youngin. You're not a youngin in our gym. How old
Yeah.
were you when you started with that?
I think I was 15, but I was about to turn 16 when I first started. So I've been here, and I'm about to be 22 now. So I've been here a solid 6 years.
Yeah, I mean, like you're getting up there in age now. Like you're about to catch us. Maybe our next oldest coach, next youngest coach might be 34 or 35.
Just
So
a
you
little
bring
gap, just a little
you
bit.
bring you bring a fresh young energy to our staff.
Yeah.
So how did you get started with with CrossFit, or maybe tell us a little bit about maybe your history in athletics or activity before, and then maybe how you kind of jumped into CrossFit and how you guys found us.
Yeah. So I was a gymnast for most of my childhood. I probably did gymnastics from like the age of like 7 or 8 all the way up to like late middle school, early high school. And then it just got started getting really competitive and like I think just like growth spurts, I just wasn't keeping up. I was kind of losing the passion for the gymnastics, and we were moving a lot because my dad was military, so wasn't really finding a good gymnastics gym that fit me. Just the kind of things that happen as an athlete. Like once you get to that point, you have to decide like, do I want to be super competitive or am I really that interested in it anymore? And for me, I just wasn't. I didn't have the passion that I think you should have to want to be competitive in gymnastics. So I probably quit. I was like 14. And then my dad actually suggested CrossFit. He just like briefly mentioned it. And I straight up told him, I was like, that sounds like the dumbest thing ever. That sounds awful. I was like, I told him that and I got mad at him. I was like, why would you suggest that? Why would I want to like lift weights? And he like described as like pushing yourself to like the brink of death. I like this sounds horrible. Why would I want to do that? But he just suggested as like a way to like stay fit, not necessarily compete. And I was like, I'd rather do something else. So I went and I tried rock climbing. I did rock climbing for about a year. I liked it. I never did it long enough to really get good at it. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I'll try CrossFit. Like I was probably like a year later. I was like, I'll try it. Um, and I liked it. I liked it enough that I was like, going like 3 days a week, not really taking it seriously, but like I was like, good way to stay in shape. And that's kind of how I started. I was like 15, 16. So
What made you like what when you first started? What made you like it? Like what at least kept you saying like, all right, well, I'll keep coming back for this at least. What was it that attracted?
I think it was the fact that there was that community aspect, almost that team aspect that you get with sports, and the fact that it changed every time. Like I didn't have to just like do the same workout every day, the same cycle every day. Cause I remember, like, when I first quit gymnastics, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna lose all my muscle, I'm gonna get all fat or whatever. And I was like trying to do all that, the YouTube ab routines and stuff that, like, everyone does and then doesn't stick to. I was like, this is awful. I don't wanna like repeat the exact same thing every day. So I liked the fact that it changed every time. And there were some movements that like were gymnastics based, and I was like, oh, I'm good at these. And then there were some movements I was really bad at, and I was like, oh well, I'll suffer through it.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, those are a couple of good points you made because one, when you talk about the team aspect, I think I had a conversation with a newer client actually earlier this week. They were getting started. They played high school volleyball,
Hmm.
and he was talking about like he kind of likes the level a little bit of like having some team competition, even like just not like, oh hey, I'm competing against this person, but this other person next to me is kind of pushing me. And he said, I'm kind of interested in that piece because I always enjoyed that in my team setting when it came to volleyball. that is something that's very common that are once you start and see, like once you start in it, you realize that. But somebody from the outside looking in may not realize that there is a level of like a team component to working out in that group setting. And to be honest with you, like our classes, they're not huge, right? Our biggest class might have 15 or 16 people in it, but a lot of our classes have, 5 to 10 people. And that's very
Mhm.
common, like to the same amount of people that you might have outside being on a football team or a soccer team where you might have a bigger roster. But it's a very similar size feel of the people that you would see in a team. The other thing, when you talk about like things changing up a little bit, I don't know about, I know my daughter does gymnastics. I know she thinks she knows Coach Lindsey, can teach her all the gymnastics stuff. So she loves it when she gets to come to the gym and play around with you. But one of the things that you see a lot though is like you guys are constantly working on very similar drills, similar skill pieces. Like your practices are very consistent because like the skills and drills you're working on is repetition, right? Like, hey, you're doing your floor routine. Well, your floor routine is the same, right? We're duplicating and duplicating. And when we get on the beam, we do these things. When we go to vault, we do these things. When we get on the bars, we have these drills, right? So it can be very consistent and monotonous there. Whereas CrossFit does, have a little bit of variability. But I will also say gymnasts are some of the best CrossFitters because two things. One, even though you're not moving a barbell in gymnastics, right? The fact that most gymnasts have great body control, like obviously doing things like pull-ups, doing things like toes to bar, rope climbs, getting on the rings, things like that. Like those are, handstand type things, handstand
Yeah.
push-ups, push-ups in general. All of those things are a lot of body control, but to be able to teach you how to move a barbell in a controlled way, gymnasts usually pick that up a little bit better than a lot of other people because
Mhm.
you guys have worked so much on body control. And so you were a natural, like, I know you may have struggled with some things initially, but you were very natural in your ability to just knowing
Yeah,
that from a
I'd
coaching
say
perspective.
yeah, I definitely up on it quickly. Now, I didn't do any extra stuff when I first started. I didn't even go every day. I went like 3 days a week. That's it. I mean, like I could deadlift safely and I could clean safely and stuff. Was I lifting crazy weights? No, but I could definitely pick up on the drill of it for sure. And I will say that like even though in gymnastics it did get really repetitive sometimes, the plus side of it was you like I remember there were summers, and then there was like the season. So like when you got into competitive season, that's when you repeated it all the time. But then
Yeah, yeah.
summer it got lax, and you got to work on new skills and stuff like that. And I noticed kind of similarities in the CrossFit aspect. Like when you're ramping up for competition, you're going to be working on like a lot of your weaknesses over and over and over again. But then when you are kind of in your off season, you can kind of chill and lay back and maybe work on a little more fun stuff. So,
Yeah, it's a good way to put that. That's good perspective. And, I think that is probably very similar in that way. So you go from, dad kind of just forcing you into, hey, like, go do this CrossFit thing. And if anybody's met your dad, like, I can understand probably his, like, I could see how he told you about it the first time.
mhm.
You go from, all right, I'll try it, to then like, all right, well, I'll come a few days a week and just kind of doing it to stay in shape. But then like fast forward a couple of years and all of a sudden you wanted to be a coach. How did that transition happen?
Honestly, I specifically remember the flip kind of happening during COVID. 2021, I'm sure just like every other person, especially high schoolers that were going through COVID, you have nothing to do at home. You're like, I am going insane. And I remember I would always do the workouts at home, even if they were like crazy modified because we had like almost no equipment at home. I would do them every single day. So it went from 3 days a week when I was in school, and then when we did transfer from the at home thing, and we had the gym at home, and you guys were doing it on Zoom, I would do the workout every single day, and I was like, this is keeping me sane. So, and then once I finally was able to actually go back to the gym physically, I was like, I'm so glad to have this to go to. So, and then it just kind of kept going even after COVID was kind of passed. So I specifically remember that transitioning happening.
Yeah, I didn't know that. We obviously, we sent you some questions before this, but I didn't. And but you and I have never really talked about that was the switch for
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah.
so then, you get back from COVID and now you're working out every day because that's what you were doing, when we were closed.
Yeah.
So you stayed consistent at that. What made you go from athlete to then want to coach?
So I specifically remember thinking to myself, like, I was about to turn 18 and I was like, I was a cleaner at your gym for a little bit and I was doing that as just like a high school gig. And I was like, I do like being in the gym. And even though I was just cleaning, I was like, this is a good place to be when I can just listen to music. I was like, it would be even better if I could actually do stuff that's CrossFit related. And I definitely had some worries in the back of my mind, like, man, I'm really young compared to everyone else. I can't lift very heavy, but I'm like, I do know the movements and I think I can demo them well. So I was like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to get my L1. And I think it would be a great job because I planned on going to college and stuff. So I was like, this would be a great part time job to get a little bit of money and also like actually do something I'm passionate about rather than like, doing like a fast food job or a retail job or whatever.
Yeah. What do you, so, how you got into it, like, yeah, I'm kind of passionate about this. I like it, right? I enjoy this, piece of it. That's what got you started. What has your, obviously, like, you're pretty invested in this now. Like, you've been coaching for us for a couple of years. You know, it's not I don't know. I would think that you could say this honestly. It's not, yeah, it might be part-time hours, but it's not a part-time gig in the way that you guys. I talked to one of our other coaches earlier this week on the podcast, and um, I don't think people realize how much extra work is involved and extra preparation is involved in how you deliver things on the floor. So yeah, the part-time gig turns into way more of like, man, I'm passionate about this and I want to be a great coach. What do you love about coaching now? Because now, like, you have your L2, right? Like, so now you've got your level 2. You've gone and gotten another certification on, you know, continuing to be a good coach. Like, what's continued to fuel that passion for you as a coach?
I think I just really love giving other people the community aspect that I always craved. Because I know a big reason that people are afraid to go into the gym or maybe don't want to go into the gym is because A, it's boring, and B, I mean, like, you don't want to do it alone. I mean, like, most people, there are a couple exceptions, I will say that, but most people don't like to just work out and suffer alone, especially with the high intensity workouts that we're doing. And I think that people really make connections here and have end up making close friends. Even if you don't hang out outside of CrossFit, you can still be close with somebody, even if it's just in the gym and having those relationships and those interactions. And I know that it's really saved me a lot because it can be difficult to make friends in school and in other aspects because you're just so focused on yourself and you're like focused on I gotta pass this test or whatever. So this has kind of been like a huge social aspect for me and I want to give that to other people and as well as make them fitter, but I think mentally it really helps them a lot too. Then I think we kind of forget about that part. Like, don't get me wrong, I want to get them stronger physically and I want to get them to lose weight or whatever their goal is, but I think the mental aspect is such a huge play in this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit it on the head when we talk about who we're looking for as coaches and who will be good fits for us is that, the number one thing that we care that is important to us is that you care about our people, right? And like you said, like, sure, people come here because they want to see physical results, right? But there's a lot of mental and emotional things that go on in that process. And, you guys as coaches are great at getting people fit. But one of your strongest tools is being able to provide a high five or a hug or, just a little bit of emotional encouragement or support at times, right? And so I always tell people, like, listen, I can't I it's difficult for me to teach you how to care about people and how to care for people. Like, I can teach you how to coach a squat, I can teach you how to coach a deadlift and do all those other things. But, like, you got to step to the floor and be a caring person first and foremost, right? I'm going to ask this question. It's not on our list of questions, so whether you have an answer for me or not, I don't know.
Okay.
But being someone that, like, we are predominantly, you and I have talked about this, offline too. Being someone that is, going on 22. All right.
Mhm.
We have a population in our gym that I would say is an older group of individuals. So our average age is much more over 40, over 50. We have some, we definitely have some people in their 20s. We definitely have some people in their 30s. But how do you navigate the differences between like we are a multi-generational gym, okay? So how do you navigate um, the differences that maybe your daily life versus like the client that's in their 50s or 60s daily life? How do you encounter like do you find that challenging? Do you find that rewarding? What is that?
I never found it that challenging, actually. It kind of came naturally. I feel like, I mean, I was working out here for a decent amount of time before I actually started coaching. Like, I think I was here for like at least like 2 years before I started like going and getting my L1 and then, doing an internship and all that. And I feel like I was already around the people, and the population was kind of older. And I still interacted with people and all that stuff. And I never really struggled with like relating to people, partly because like I feel like I would almost see them like, well, they're the same age as my dad, or they're the same age as my mom, or whatever, or my grandma maybe. And I'm like, I just see them in that way. And I still have a lot of meaningful interactions with them. And I definitely talk to them differently than I might talk to people at my school or somebody. And I definitely noticed that I do have a not necessarily a filter, but like kind of a different mode that I put myself in when I'm at the gym, just because like, I mean, it is different. I mean, like you kind of mature as you get older, and the way you talk just changes. But I never really say I struggled with it. People also say that I'm an old soul, like they forget that I'm 22 or I'm 21. And maybe that's true, maybe that's not. I don't know, but yeah. I think it's less that I'm an old soul and more that just I've been around older people for so much of my life. So yeah.
Well, I'll say this, I can relate because I started training people when I was 19, and
Hmm.
so we were very similar age when he started working with clients here. And but I was my first job. I was working at a Globo gym. It was a Gold's Gym in Shiloh, and I was telling somebody the other day, like I was selling personal training packages that like were probably just as high as what we sell now, but like this was 20 years ago, and I was like 19. I didn't belong selling training packages like this. Like they were way more money than I would have. I didn't even know what it looked like to have that much money, and
Hmm.
so but I was selling them to people that were, in their 50s. And so then when you work in a group setting, it's one thing. You might have like a, 50-year-old over here and a 30-year-old over here. And, so you got like a very ages, but I had to spend an entire hour just one on one with this person that I have nothing in common with. Right. And so it took a lot for me, or I had to learn really fast. And we talk about this in our coaching internship. It's one of our 14 habits of highly effective coaches that we have borrowed from other places, but is being that personality chameleon, right? And so
Hmm.
being able to like adapt your personality, adapt your delivery and your volume and the way that you interact with people based on their personality or their age demographic or whatever else. And I think you just do such a good job at that. I never, years ago, it was, when we first started working with you, it was more, you know, getting you to, getting you to be louder maybe or a little bit more, you weren't like a loud person. Now I hear you across the gym and I'm like, man, she used to be so quiet. She's so loud now.
Yeah.
But you really have done an amazing job. What we call kind of like being your biggest self. And I would agree. I think you probably have a little bit more of an old soul. I wouldn't disagree with that. But I think more so than that is one, we care about our people, but two, you also have done a really good job of managing that personality and being that chameleon that can adapt to a lot of different groups because it is different, when you're trying to work with somebody that might be twice your age versus the person that is within your same age range too. So I
Yeah.
think you've done a good job with that.
Thank you.
What what would you say like what's your favorite thing to coach right now? Like, what do you really enjoy? I think I know this, but I'll just
You probably do.
ask for the audience.
I would probably have to say toe to bar. handstands, and then like pull ups. Those are probably like the top three, but probably like toe to bar and handstands are my favorites.
Because you spent half of your life upside down, and hanging from a bar.
Yeah, yeah, I did. I did. And I mean they're my favorite movements to do too, and they're ones that I just kind of understand. I will say that a movement that I'm good at but I really struggle to coach is like the butterfly pull-ups just cuz it kind of clicked pretty quickly and I'm like I don't know how I did it, but I'm doing it now. I struggle to coach it. So even though there are some things that come super naturally, doesn't necessarily mean they come naturally to coach. That's something that I kind of found surprising. So yeah.
Yeah, I could, I totally understand that because so when I started CrossFit, I didn't have a coach. I was getting done with playing college sports, and one of my former football coaches, he said, "Hey man, have you heard of this CrossFit thing? Like it's on a website. There's like a workout. They're like crazy workouts. They'd be just up your alley." And I was like, "I don't even know why you think they would be." I mean, I was working out even when I stopped playing football. Like working out was always a thing that I wanted to do. So I was working out. I was training people, whatever else. And I think I was 20 or 21 maybe. And I started doing these workouts, but back then, CrossFit.com had this like video database of movements, except YouTube wasn't even around yet. Or if it was, like it was in its infancy. It was QuickTime was the video platform that you would go online and you would watch these like grainy videos on the computer. And by the way, I didn't have video access on my phone. So like before I would go to the gym, which I was doing it in a university gym that was not equipped for CrossFit by any means. I would like go onto my computer and sit at my desktop and like watch these videos and be like, okay, oh, is that like this is how I learned about a false grip on the rings. Like I was just
Mhm.
like, that's how you hold the rings. Didn't have a
Mhm.
clue, right? And then I would go to the gym and try to figure it out by myself. And then I'd go back and then do it again. And then I'd come back. There were no workout, there was no drill videos, there was nothing of this. So what I found though is over the years as a coach is I realized that like, man, I just taught myself a lot of these things. And so then when I have to go back and try to teach somebody, and like you just kind of figure it out, right? You're like the butterfly pull up is a perfect example of that. Like I probably struggle with it too because like I can give you these drills, but I'm like, no, just do this. And I'm like, well, that's how my body does it. Well, that doesn't
Yeah.
mean that it resonates with the other person. It wasn't the same as like teaching the barbell deadlift, teaching the clean. Because and again, it was those gymnastics movements that I really had to learn by myself. And I think I've really struggled. Like the butterfly pull up is one, the muscle up is another one that like, I had to just learn all that stuff by myself. And so
Yeah.
it's not always carried over real well to coaching an
Yeah.
athlete, and teaching them that stuff. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that because, yeah, you're not alone in that. I don't think people always realize that. Listen, I can do it, I know, but coaching it and doing it is two different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So what would you say now, like as we wrap up here? What's next for you? What are you working towards either as an athlete or as a coach? It's kind of the next phase for you.
So as an athlete, last year was the first year I actually like registered and signed up for the open worldwide. And I made it to quarterfinals. So I was in like the 80th percentile and I was really happy with that. This year, obviously quarterfinals got canceled. My goal is to try to just get into the top 10%. I made it in the top 20% last year, and I've been doing a lot of accessory work and a lot of strength training. So I'm
Yeah, I
hoping
wanted
top
to
10.
hit on that. I wanted to hit on that real quick because you talked about like, oh, I just did it 3 days a week. I wasn't doing any extra work. I wasn't doing this when you were talking earlier
Mhm,
about getting started. And then the other piece you said like nobody really likes to work out alone and struggle alone.
mhm.
I left you in the gym the other night at like 10 to 7 after you got done coaching classes. By the way, you showed up 2 hours prior to your classes and started doing workouts, then did the class workout, and then you coached classes, and then you were still in here when I said, I'm leaving, Lindsay. I'll see you later. I locked you in the gym to finish your workout.
Yeah,
Like, you're doing all the extra work now.
I know. And I'm like, I would not have done this like 5 years ago.
No.
What is wrong with you? I would have,
What's
I,
next for Lindsay? Being a beast. Yeah, that's what's coming next for you. Being a beast. You're doing all the extra work
yeah, I
now.
am. So my goal is to hopefully make it to semifinals one year. That's going to be like a long-term goal, maybe within like the next 4 or 5 years, because it's a really hefty goal. Some of the weights people are lifting is insane. So that's probably my biggest goal. I want to compete in Wadapalooza at some point. So I would really like to do that. I think that would be so much fun. Never been to Miami, and I just think it'd be so much energy. So one day I'd like to qualify for that. Um, those are my biggest goals as far as fitness wise. As far as coaching wise, within like the next, I'd say 2 years, I want to try to be able to get my L3. And that's probably the biggest goal I have. And I would like to at some point get my nutrition certification,
Yeah.
if not for coaching other people, for me as well, because I think that's part of my biggest inhibitor is making sure I'm actually fueling the right ways I'm supposed to be fueling, because I can get pretty lazy on it, and just next thing you know, it's noon and I haven't eaten anything. I'm like, should probably eat something because I gotta work out for like 3 hours.
Do you mean your nutrition is like a college kid's nutrition, probably?
I think it's better than the average college kid. I do
All
think
right,
it is better than
you're an
that.
above average college kid's nutrition.
I think I'm above average, but comparatively to probably like, I don't know, like Haley Adams and other people my age that are like going to the games and stuff, it's not that good.
My wife and I talked this morning, and she was talking about the Open. I was like, babe, I'm like, I am not trying to make the game. She's like, yeah, but you could if you tried. I was like, I don't want that life. I don't want that life. I
It
want to
is
eat
kind
my pizza. I want, like,
of, yeah,
yeah.
it is ridiculous some of the stuff that we force upon ourselves.
Yeah, that's for sure. So a couple, I wanted to circle back so like the listener could understand, like when you talked about your L3. So there's three levels of those certifications in CrossFit. And so you got your level one, that's kind of like the base level, learning the foundations of CrossFit allows you an opportunity to begin coaching. You did that, a few years ago. And then after that is the L2. And the level
Mhm.
two is actually certifying you and training you to be a better coach, right? So really evaluating your coaching ability, fine tuning that, and developing that appropriately. One thing that we talk about with our staff is like we kind of train our coaches at a level two level. Like we really, that's what we deliver on the floor. Now, one of the things about going and getting your level two is it's important that you have some hours of coaching underneath your belt. And so, you coached for a little while prior to go getting that level two, because it's much more relatable and impactful if you have coaching under your belt so that you can continue to, like, so you actually have perspective and know, oh, this is how this I would apply this, right? But now you're talking about going to get your L3. For the listener, the L3 is actually like now you're like a trainer of trainers. Well, this is truly like knowing all of this stuff around CrossFit methodology and the ability to coach it, and the ability to help other trainers even coach that effectively. That's a pretty big deal to try to go and get that done. And I have no doubt that you'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
It's a great goal for you. And if you end up going to Miami, I will not be there competing, but the Nemo family will go and just cheer you on and enjoy the Miami sun. We have no problem with
Yeah. Good excuse to go to Miami,
that.
right?
Exactly. I don't think I have to like really convince my kids to go watch Coach Lindsay in the sun on the beach.
That
We'll
would
be
be
fine
so
with
much
that.
fun. That'd be so much fun.
All right, Liz. Well, hey, thanks so much for the time today. I really appreciate it. I think this is really good. I got to learn a few new things about you, which is awesome. Hopefully, our some of our listeners did too. So thanks for coming on, and hopefully, I have you on here soon.
Yeah. Thank you.